Brilliant. So I think this is just the easier way for moving forward. I'll still figure out how and why Microsoft Teams doesn't let record, because that's just weird. That's just graying everything out. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about nutrition.
Nutrition, indeed. I love a bit of nutrition.
Well, as we all know, nutrition is very important. So I want to get your perspective on why and how we should go about improving on nutrition in general.
Okay.
Now, I'm coming from the point of view that I train people. And I know sometimes people say, I can't achieve this, I can't achieve that. I've done it. I've been on various diets. I've done this. Now, for someone like me that trains fairly regularly, I see things slightly different. So I want to get someone else's perspective on how they think nutrition can actually help them physically cope with training. So that's pretty much my first question.
Okay. So, I mean, for me, nutrition became important about, 10 years ago? Because I had a bit of a weak lower back. Apparently, it turns out it was an injury I had from when I was a child, which I thought would heal. But over the years, clearly it didn't. My back was out of sync, apparently. And then with all the driving and sitting, which is part of my job, at some point it just popped and I was on the floor for days. And then I went through osteopaths and chiropractors for a number of years. Every time it went, it just wasn't working. And then I decided, actually, there's more to it than this. I need to look at the overall body, if you like, and importantly, what I'm putting in. So that was one reason why I changed my nutrition habits, was that. The second reason is because I've got this autoimmune skin condition called vitiligo, which gives me lovely, beautiful white patches where all the melanin decides to dissolve away. Stress related, apparently, but it's something that's just stays and either gets worse or just sort of stays stable. But there's no cure for it. However, research says that if you have a sort of more of a green or a clean diet and take out certain things in the diet, that helps. So those are my two reasons why a number of years ago I changed my nutrition, not necessarily to become stronger or exercise better, but that's a big bonus side of it for me.
Okay, that sounds perfect with reasons to it. What would you consider to be a nutritionally rich diet? Because many people have different ideas of what nutrition is. And I suppose it comes down to what you want to achieve or get from the nutrition. So what would you consider?
Well, there's some, so there's people say have a clean green diet, and there are lots of different diets that are out there. In fact, we're flooded with information about different diets, from keto diets to all sorts of, a variety of different things that, it's quite confusing. The simple matter is that every single human being is pretty much different to every other. Okay. So, what might be good for me might not necessarily be good for you in certain instances. So before I answer the question, what I feel nutritionally is good for me, it's important to understand, every single person is different. Every single body is different, although we have lots of common things amongst us within our bodies, right, that we share. And that's what I'm going to touch on, because a lot of the things that I changed tend to be quite common sort of factors in nutrition. And those changes that I made have certainly helped me, and they might help other people. I don't know. But anyhow, so we're all different, but we have common things that we can all sort of take on board and do something with. The second thing is, if you really, really, truly want to figure out what works for your body and what doesn't work, and then take that in the context of, whatever your objective is, like you want to get fit, you want to get lean, you want to run the marathon next year, or it's just general health and well-being, then if you can, I would strongly suggest people should visit a nutritionist, not a dietitian, but a nutritionist in particular. And at least they can do some checks and tests on things that you might not be, or that might not be good for you in terms of, you're allergic to them or you're reacting to them in a particular way. Because there's another universal truth here, which is as we get older and our bodies become slower and our metabolism slows down and, we start to become intolerant to certain foods and certain mixtures of foods as well. So these few points are kind of universal. If you really want to know what makes it good for you, your own body, then the only real way to do that is to properly get diagnosed and have a proper analysis done, and then go forward that way. That said, for me, there are some simple things I changed in terms of my nutritional habits. And so I've got this sort of routine that I follow the majority of the week. However, on the weekends, at least half the weekend that kind of goes out the window. And that's not a bad thing, because having too much pressure about you must do this and why must you do anything? Because the moment you make it so adamant and you make it so compulsory on yourself, it's going to start raising your anxiety levels. You're going to start getting a little bit stressed. And what does a normal human being do when they're told not to do something?
They do it.
They go ahead and do it. So if you tell me don't have that donut, I'm usually very disciplined. I know when to say no. But if you say to me, don't have it, I'm likely to have it. So anyway, there's another sort of universal point here is that, it's a mindset and you've got to be comfortable with it. And, there's no point in having a life if you're going to completely try and live, in such a way that you're not enjoying it. So you have to have things balanced out. So with all of those things in mind, I have a sort of routine during the week that I tend to follow. And luckily, my other half is quite good at following this as well, because it helps her too. But what might help is if I sort of explain the sorts of things that I stopped eating.
Oh yeah, that will help clarify where we're going. Go for it.
So there's two or three things that I definitely that don't sit well with me. They used to when I was younger, but they don't anymore. One of them is wheat, or I should say gluten in particular. So there's a lot of controversy around gluten. Some people believe it, some people don't. Some people think it's just rubbish. All I know is when I was young, when I was a kid, a teenager, in my 20s, running around the university, running around London, I could pretty much eat what I want, how I wanted, have very little sleep or no sleep at all, and still be going at it, right? That's all gone out the window. By the time I hit around 30, and I'm 50 now, by the time I hit 30, I started to notice some changes. Okay, so one thing I've learned in my sort of recent journey in nutrition is that white bread, for me, really doesn't work. And I'm still yet to find someone who's comfortable with the type of white bread we get in this country. By that, I mean the sort of processed breads that we get here. If you go to Italy or the Mediterranean or other countries, that might be a different story, but we're here. Exactly, it's slightly different. But anyway, bread in general, we love it, but it's not that great for you in general. Most people will say that. So I switched it. I tend to have strictly brown bread or something that's got wheat germ or seeded or something that's got, a much more browner content on it. I have tried gluten-free bread. I don't like it that much, but I'll have it from time to time, but I just sort of keep the bread count, if you like, down. So I won't have toast every day. If I do, I'll have a sort of medium piece of sour, dark rye bread or sourdough. But maybe
so do you think it's the fiber content that makes the difference, or? I
think it's the gluten. Yeah, well, yeah. And so therefore, whenever I've had out and about, you're working or whatever, and there's only sort of regular sandwiches, and you end up having it anyway. Like I said, there's no point being so strict that you go hungry. That's going to be probably worse for you. I won't stop myself. If I have to and there's no other choice, I'll have the white bread, but it's quite rare. But when I have done that, I've noticed my gut bloating. That's the first thing. So you can call it IBS if you like, but for me, it's just plain and simple bloatedness and feeling lethargic and really tired and having really low mood drops. So that's one thing, bread. I changed how much and what type of bread that I eat. The second thing is milk. I very rarely drink cow's milk. Again, this is a sort of a topic of discussion, but a lot of people will argue and say, why would you need to drink dairy milk when actually we're the only species that still drink milk after we've grown up? So babies drink milk. They need the nutrients and the nutrition, ideally, that comes from the mum, right? But they need milk, calcium, bones, etc. But there's no other animal out there. There's no other, animal of our description, if you like, a mammal, that needs that. So what is the point here? And for me, dairy milk just doesn't seem to work. It doesn't sit with me very well. I feel like I get bloated. So I'm quite happy drinking an alternative milk. I went through a phase of drinking loads of almond milk. I got bored of it. Then I switched to coconut milk. It's a little too sweet. And my perfect milk right now, for the last year and a half, has been oat milk. Now, these things are getting cheaper and cheaper. So the excuse of, they're really expensive doesn't apply.
Yeah.
They used to. And they're long life as well, So you don't have to worry about it going off. It lasts a heck of a long time. Okay, so I changed the milk regime. Cheeses, I'll try and eat a basic cheese that's like 1 minus the lactose, the lacto-free one, because the alternative cheeses don't taste that great at the moment, and they are super expensive. But you can get lacto-free ones. So for me, I think removing that lactose element seems to help a lot. And then things like, pasta. If you go to Tesco's, you've got every type of free-from brand available. Some of them quite normal price, like they're not expensive. So I buy my pasta and my pasta sauce and things like that. Even my porridge. I used to love oat porridge, but I'm on a real kick with rice porridge right now. It's just like having rice pudding every morning. And it's gluten-free, GM-free. Suffice to say, anything that I see that's got additives in it, so alternatives to sugar, I try to keep away from. I have sugar. I have like a teaspoon of sugar with my coffee every morning.
Is there a discussion about sugar? There is a discussion in relation to sugar and alternatives. I think the last article I read along those lines was something to do with the alternatives. Our body doesn't know what to do with or make of it. So in effect, it either just passes it out or just stores it.
Yeah, chances are it's probably going to store it. And that's not good. Anyway, you don't need to go into the conversation about how bad sugar in general is, but there's all the hidden sugar as well. So fizzy drinks, I don't very rarely touch a fizzy drink. But if I'm at an event or a party or, it's
an occasional thing.
I will, but I will not order. Once upon a time, I used to have a can of Diet Coke before going to bed. I was addicted to Diet Coke and probably half a bag of Doritos. But I was in my late 20s and I could get away with it. And I never thought anything of it. And I'd be going to the gym, this, that, and the other. I can't do that anymore. If I did that, I am not sleeping that night. It's not going to happen. And I feel like I've got like a train wreck going on. So sugar, and be careful of hidden sugars, and also alternatives to sugar, like, stevia and all of these things. If you really look into them, they might not be the same effect as sugar, but now you're replacing it with other things that are not great. Sorbitol and all these other effectively chemicals. So actually, when I have sugar, do you know what I have? It's quite easy. I just have cane sugar, Demerara, even if I have to. I won't touch white sugar. Or if I can, just put a teaspoon of honey in. It does the job. It's like not the end of the world if you can't put sugar. Salt is another one, but I've never been a big fan of putting salt on top of food. That has nothing to do with nutrition. I was never a fan of it. So salt for cooking is okay, but salt on top of food, nah.
I never did it because my dad had high blood pressure, so it was a no-no in our house. So salt's always been minimal.
You got to watch out for these basics like salt, sugar, and the hidden stuff. So I never used to look at labels, but it's quite nice in this country because of government regulations. They have the color coding, yellow, amber, green, makes life a lot easier. So the very, very least we can do is make sure there's not, hopefully not too many, not any red blocks on your sandwiches or on your whatever items that you're buying. I always then will flip it around as well to see what's the hidden stuff in there as well. But I'm probably being a bit too fussy. So milk, I changed. I changed the bread situation. I have very little of it. but I won't deny myself if I'm in a restaurant and they've put, they sometimes bring olives and a bit, those small Italian crusty bread. I'll have that. I'm not going to stop it completely, but overall, and this is the main theme with me, I would say 70%, I'm not going to lie, probably about 70% of the time, I eat what I call clean. And these are some of the ways I do it. So for now, I'm just saying these are things I've tried to cut out or reduce down to very little amounts from time to time, whilst every now and again you can have a bit of a blowout. So bread, milk, cheese, there are alternatives or there are better options. That made a huge difference to me. Another thing was water, and I'm still not very good at it. But I mean, we studied biology, right? We know the basics of the body function. What is it? Even on an average day for an average person in the winter, forget summer heat, you need what? A minimum of 2 liters going in of water. Just water.
It's basic cell regeneration. You need water for the process to take place.
I can count on 2 hands how many times I've done that in a month. It's rare. So that's one of my big objectives. And there are ways to beat that because I don't want to keep going downstairs to fill up my pint glass. So what I used to do when I was younger, when I was into the gym thing, I used to have a liter bottle. Then I like a bottle of mineral water, and I just fill it up twice in a day, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? So it's just training your mind to say, look, this is simple. I'll keep the bottle of water next to me. But that's something I've got to work on. But anyhow, changing a few of those things started to make a big difference for me. The other thing that I started to do was to eat a lot more green and fresh fruit and vegetables. And by that, I mean, where possible, organic. Although, again, I can't afford a whole basket of organic, but some of the main things that I get, like spinach, lettuce, celery, where possible, you can get British organic versions in the supermarket that might only be a few pennies more, but I think it's worth it. Yeah, I know some organic variations of fruit and veg can be quite pricey, so I totally get that. But, I've got another hack on that, very simple. I tend to do my veg shopping at certain times. And depending on the supermarket, you can go and get that end of day stuff, and you'll notice the vast majority of people will buy the regular fruit and veg, which, to be perfectly honest, it's not great. It really is.
You notice that when you go abroad to like the Mediterranean countries and you try the tomatoes out there or the olives, the taste difference is just like night and day.
It's like we were was lucky enough to get away we went to Austria, but we went to Italy from there. Drove to Italy, went to Tuscany. Swear, I mean, the tomatoes there, the olives, the fruit, the veg, the fish. Okay, Tuscany's sort of middle of the country, but they have fish comes in every day. It's all you need. Then you realize why, even though they smoke generally more than us, Italian people, or Mediterranean people, even though they probably work different hours or whatever, but their diet is just so much cleaner and fresher. So in this country, a big, simple hack is choose the better option. If it feels a bit expensive, go later on in the day. I promise you're going to find that little yellow reduced label on tons of organic stuff. And I think the reason is because a lot of people won't buy organic straight away because it's slightly more expensive. So when you go at certain times, so you've got to find ways around it if you're bothered about it, because I am. There's another reason why I've changed my habits more recently, and that's nothing really to do with tradition. It's about sustainability and the environment because, a lot of fruit and veg that we get, it's quite cheap. Other than the fact that it might be genetically modified or it's used pesticides or herbicides, which you don't want to get into your system, that should be reason enough to try and buy local, to try and buy fresh. Get on a bus on a Saturday and find the local farm that will let you buy fresh fruit and veg. Guarantee it's going to be cheaper, but to do that. Okay, so anyway, but the other reason why I've started to change is my other half is really, really hot on the environment. And when, she's now actively looking at where fruit and veg is coming from. If it says New Zealand, the carbon footprint for that to come here doesn't sit right. And I wasn't that bothered about that, but I'm starting to become more bothered about it. So where I can support your local farmers, support UK produce, I'll do that. Albeit our produce is never going to taste as good as what they get. It's made, but there are other benefits to it. So
one question I'm going to throw in there. Do you notice the difference when you say you eat, well, 5 days a week and the other 2 days you may lapse a bit? Do you notice that when you eat correctly, you have more energy basically on tap, as opposed
100%.
to
100%. And the best example of that is afternoon slumps. So, we all get afternoon slumps. Everybody's been working from home during COVID. So you'll notice it even more. And we're even more unhealthy now because we don't move as much because it's sat. Look, my office is this bedroom. I'm sat propped up on the bed. That's my office. Because her job's a lot more important than mine. She's way more busy. She's on calls from like 8 a.m. till 6 or 7 at night. She can have the nice table and the ergonomic chair. I get the dodgy bed. So even more important, I try to kind of keep an eye on these things and move about. But the afternoon slump hits me hard. If I've had a good day where I've gone we haven't gone into the exercise stuff that I do yet, but I generally do a 45-minute to an hour brisk walk every day. Yeah, I chomp on an apple on my way out. That's taking care of one nice bit of nutrition. The old apple a day, honest to God, it helps your digestion, and it's not bad for you, and it's decent. An apple, what's wrong with that? So I do that and I go for my walk. If I've had a good day like that, when I come back from my walk, I'm hungry, ready for lunch. It's like 1 o'clock. If I've stopped at the petrol station to pick up a regular sandwich, and I always eat tuna at lunchtime, I love tuna. That's like my go-to since I was a kid. But of course, if you buy it in a petrol station, right, not only does it cost more because, £3, £5 deal, by the time you've clocked that up over a week, just imagine that's like a whole shopping basket. You could have bought 10 tins of tuna and 2 decent loaves of bread or wraps.
Yeah.
There's a nice alternative. How about a gluten-free? Tesco's do a pack of 5 or 6 gluten-free, wheat-free, stone-baked wraps, right? Either the regular ones or beetroot wraps. If you've ever seen that, they look pink. They don't taste anything like beetroot, but they're made from beetroot rather than flour. £1 for 5. That's your weekly sandwiches done.
Yeah.
So anyway, if I have something like a regular sandwich from the petrol station, which comes with a packet of crisps and a drink, £3 meal deal, £4 meal deal, easy, right? And even if I did choose like a juice drink, like a vitamin juice drink, the fact that I've had that sandwich and that packet of crisps, which I will do once or twice a week, I notice the afternoon slump like this. All I want to do is go to sleep.
Yeah.
All I want to do is go to sleep. However, I'll give you today's example. We both took a walk into town. It's about 15-ish minutes walk. A little bit of a zip around town, Bracknell, another 15 minutes later. So we kind of got a little bit of legwork in and bought some food there. Instead of going to the sandwich shop, we sort of treated ourselves, and we went to one of these little supermarkets and just picked out their sort of homemade salad. Again, I picked one that had tuna. It was a healthy one, right? It had tuna, lettuce, cucumber, little cherry tomatoes, a very light vinaigrette dressing, and 1 egg, boiled egg, right? So it was like one of those tuna niçoise, tuna niçoise salad. Okay. I had that, and to top it off, I had a little bit of juice, apple juice, fresh apple juice, like regular apple juice. And I think I had just some nuts because I love Brazil nuts. It's the selenium, I'm told. But anyway, I just like the taste of them, right? I was completely full up. It's now 20 to 5. I had that at just before 1 p.m. And I haven't felt the need to have anything other than my mug of tea, which is I drink herbal teas, right? During the day, just to keep hydrated. That's it. And look at it. It's now almost, 5 hours.
Yeah.
So again, this is another hack. If you eat good, clean stuff, like at breakfast, I eat a bowl of rice porridge, which has been made with oat milk, boiled up, right? It comes out like rice pudding, like oaty, ricey pudding. I add 1 banana mashed up in there. That's the little bit of sweetness. I take 1 dollop of crunchy peanut butter on the side. And if I've got any fruit, any fruit, usually if it's like berries, I love blueberries and raspberries, at the moment, blackberries, which I picked out the hedge on my walk and wash them. Any berries, I chuck them in there. So I make myself a little breakfast bowl. If I have that breakfast in the morning, I don't need to worry about snacking from about 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. I don't even need to snack at all. So again, there's a lot of benefits to eating a decent breakfast, and so on. At the weekend, we'll make pancakes. We'll make a stack of pancakes, right? And we have our little cheat day. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, so I guess, cutting out certain things in general, adding certain things. The fruit and vegetables really important. The fresher and greener. Sometimes I will get some veggie sausages or some fish. We love our sort of salmon, or salmon can be expensive sometimes. So a beautiful alternative is trout. Amazing. Yeah. It's actually sweeter than salmon.
It is.
Easily like 25.
Rainbow trout is amazing.
Funny enough, we went to Cirencester in the Cotswolds at the weekend with a couple of friends, stayed in a B&B. Whenever we go there for walks, we always go to this little village called Bibury or Bibury. It's very famous. It's the most photographed little village in England, apparently. But the reason we go there, there's a trout farm. And you can fish trout, take it away, or there's a little cafe, and the fresh trout, they give you like sandwiches made with it, salads, a quiche, whatever. We just love the trout. So anyway, back to my dinner habits. In the evening, when we're doing well, we will make a nice fresh salad, right? Fresh, which has to have lettuce in there, spinach in a big chunks of it, right? Lettuce, spinach, celery. We make our own dressing. All you need is some basic things: bit of olive oil, a lemon, chop the lemon, squeeze the lemon in there, a bit of balsamic vinegar. We like to throw. She uses nutritional yeast, right, which you can get from Holland and Barrett. It's very, very good for your gut. She adds the flakes in there, and she mixes up this nice little vinaigrette dressing, pours it over the top, and she will make a bowl like this. And when we share that bowl out between us, we've got like a breakfast bowl size portion. Then all you got to do is add the nice bit. And usually that's a piece of fish, or it's maybe a piece of chicken every now and again, although we don't eat that much meat now, kind of reduce the amount of meat we eat. We treat ourselves every now and again, weekend, go out, whatever. But in the house, we very rarely eat meat. It's usually vegetarian based with fish. I love my fish. I have to have my fish. And then other days, I might get a fish cake. You get those basic thick fish cakes, two ones. Salmon fish cake or just a cod fish cake. And they can be a little heavy because they sometimes come with sauce in there. But I'll just have one of those, which is big enough. And I'll have 2 big florets of broccoli, which I've lightly boiled and then chucked in the oven along with the fish. I sprinkled a tiny bit of paprika on there to give it a little, and it goes just crispy on the edges. So my plate consists of a nice big fat fish cake or a piece of fish. And the majority of the plate either is completely full of salad or broccoli, which is one of my faves. I mean, I can eat broccoli all day, all night. And that's how we do it.
Would you say, lastly, when you eat, say you have your last meal, what time would you say you normally have your last meal?
So in the evening, it depends on work as well. Generally, come 7, latest 7:30 at a push. Sometimes if we've had to go, something to do after work. Sometimes there's stuff that we have to go and do, right? Yeah. We'll eat. But the thing is that the evening meal is very rarely too heavy. It's actually very green heavy. So, there's some tips that I learned. In fact, I'll share these with you, which kind of brings all this together. I've got 10 tips. Number 1, your stomach is smaller than your plate. So eat off smaller plates. It's very simple. Or make sure the volume on your plate has got more of the good stuff, whether that's the salads, the broccoli, the decent stuff, and less of the dodgy stuff. Your body will still accept it. It won't be a problem. Number 2, I try not to drink anything before I eat my food because I don't want the liquid to go into my stomach first. I tend to get as much of the good stuff into my tummy first. So even if I've got a plate of food, I tend to start, people mix things up on the plate or whatever. We tend to eat the good stuff, as much of the salad first, and then maybe the carbs, if there's something potato on there, and then finally the meat. Because again, if you know your body mechanics, you want to get the good stuff in there before there's anything else in the stomach. And to me, that makes a difference. It really does. Do you know what I mean? And I do that with pretty much everything that I eat. I try to eat the good stuff in first, and then slowly add the other stuff in there as well. So the order in how I eat, I tend to watch. If I've eaten well with decent food, I don't need a second or a third helping. There's no need for it. I try not to eat fruit straight after a meal. I very rarely eat fruit because, again, if your stomach is already full of hopefully good food, putting fruit, which will break down, and release sugars and all of that stuff, on top of that, if you just think about it like a sack, you don't want fruit technically fermenting on top of the fruit that you already have. It's probably a bit too technical, but I tend to avoid eating fruit straight after a meal. I tend to eat fruit separately, or like half an hour. When I go for a walk, I'll grab an apple, or in the morning, I'll have like a whole bunch of fruit just for breakfast and nothing else. Yep. Milk, I've already spoken about. That helps me with my IBS and bloating and all of those sorts of things. So I use oat milk mostly nowadays. Although if I'm out and about and there's no other alternative, I'll have regular milk, but I just don't like it. Bread, already spoke about. Again, it won't stop me having a cake or a croissant from time to time, but overall, I'll tend to avoid it and certainly won't keep stuff like that in the house. Then if it's there, I'm just going to reach for it and eat it. So another discipline is when you go to the supermarket, don't be tempted. Have your little treats, but you don't need that. Water, we spoke about that. That's really important. Okay. And about sort of gut digestion and sort of nutrition of your gut, I've started to use vitamins as well, basic vitamins, just the decent stuff, which I know I'm not getting. And as you get older, I think that becomes important to supplement it with decent vitamins, because you can't really get everything. But you could, but that would take so much planning and preparation. I don't have that time to do it. So these are the sorts of basic things I've changed. And as a result of that, quite a few years ago, I noticed I sort of lost general weight, if you like. It sort of helped me to trim down. But of course, on top of that is the exercise stuff, which I've only just touched on. But generally, I'm not a gym junkie, not like in my 20s or 30s. I don't have time, like a lot of people just don't have time. But that's why I watch videos like yours. I use resistance bands, cost me £10 for a set. And I do that every other day. So that's proper working out. I do sort of a mixture of HIIT and resistance bands every other day. But every single day, I have a routine that helps me to mobilize my back, which includes some core work as well. That takes me about 20 minutes every single day without fail. I do that before breakfast. So my daily routine is my 20-minute personal, I call it my personal routine, which is mostly about strengthening my back and my mobility. And then I do that every single day. And pretty much every day, I'll get in something like on average, 45-minute brisk walk, come rain or shine. And it will be normally around lunchtime. So 45-minute walk, go out, come back in, bit of fresh air, make my phone calls, listen to my radio sports, come in, have a nice, half-decent lunch, and that's me done. So those two things I do as activity every single day. Then on top of that, I'm trying to stick to what you do, which is the strength training and what I would call proper fitness training. And that's it.
Wow, it's been very insightful. Look, I'm sure the viewers will enjoy listening to this once it goes out. And I think I'm actually going to get you on again, just to discuss general fitness aside from nutrition, because I think nutrition, as you said, is the base of your well-being. If your nutrition is bad, it doesn't matter how many days a week you train, the results are never going to be that good. So you have to get the nutrition right in between. And as you said, you're not supposed to be a saint. You can, if you can stick to it 70% of the time, that's pretty good. We're being realistic here. Asking someone to do it, unless you're a professional athlete, then I don't see the point in doing it 100% of the time, because it becomes a chore. So as long as you can do it from time to time, 70% of the time, I think you hit the mark, and your body is going to be thankful for it. So It's been really, really fascinating having this discussion. There's a few things I actually learned today, which is really good. It's always good to learn. So I know one of the things that you pointed on in terms of milk, I still have milk on occasion, but I have to have lactose-free milk because I realized a couple of years ago, anything with lactose in it just gave me the most horrendous stomach pain. And it didn't just last for like a few hours. It went on for a couple of days. Now when we're out and about, I'm very, very fussy. If we're having something and it contains milk, I'm like, does it contain milk? And I'll just rather not have it, and I'll have something else. Because I remember having a miss once. We went somewhere and I had ordered something. I didn't know it contained milk, lactose specifically. And I was in agony for a couple of days, and my stomach was swollen up, and I just felt really sick. So I know, as you said, as people get older, their tolerance to things like lactose becomes a lot less. Yeah. And there's other things out there that we really shouldn't be eating. It's all right when you're really, really young, you can get away with it. But as you get older, you need to be a bit more careful in terms of how and what you consume.
Yeah, I mean, another quick one for me, and this is not for everyone. I mean, I don't know if this affects you, but I used to love, my mum used to make, God rest her soul, was typically the best cook ever, and she used to make some amazing Asian stroke African style, let's say curries, not really curries, right? But vegetable dishes, okra dishes, aubergine, all sorts of stuff. And I used to love her kidney bean curry.
Yeah.
We call it kidney bean curry, right? But it's a very popular dish amongst Asian people, especially from the subcontinent, stroke African, became second generation. As a kid, I would die for that. Today, when my auntie, if I go to some family houses and they make it, man, it's hard to say no. But I know if I eat kidney beans, even a small amount, my stomach is just going to bloat up. It's not pleasant, you partner next to you, you got people around you, it's not nice. I'm not going to talk about that, but
I'll tell you a story.
Again, I will have it, just say I don't care, I've got to have it. But I never used to be intolerant to milk, to white bread, to anything like kidney beans or hummus. Oh my God, you remember? We used to go to Lebanese restaurants in town. I love hummus. Even now, I'll have it. On holiday, we'll have it. But here, I very rarely touch hummus. It's such a shame because if I have just 1 teaspoon of hummus, stomach just starts bloating.
It begs the question, doesn't it, that is it a case where we've developed these intolerances because we got older, or is it because the farming methods used has introduced something that was never there in the first place?
I honestly think it's a combination of the two. I think there's, so for example, I was talking about bread, simple, right? When I go to Austria, like Judy is from the Tyrol, which is in the Alps, right? It's beautiful. It's high altitude, very high altitude. Think of those amazing mountains, the pictures like in stories, right? Now, all the butter, bread, cheese, and that's staple diet for them, right? Austrians in that region were all farmers. They're all generations of farmland, right? So for them, they always had very active lives. Today, maybe not as much, but they do have active lives, right? They eat so much of that bread, so much cheese, so much butter, so much jam. It's ridiculous. Here's a funny thing. When I go there, her dad goes to the local little bakery in the village and brings back the freshest dark bread, white bread, seeded bread, sourdough, all these funky rolls, right? And then we have what they call high altitude butter, which is the local butter, right? And they have homemade jams, and they have the cheese. If you like cheese, which I do, my God, the cheeses will blow your mind. But I eat it there, and I don't not crazy, like I don't go crazy, but I will eat it in the morning. I can't say no to them. So I don't have a healthy breakfast when I'm there. So for a few days, I'm eating bread, cheese, jam, coffee, whatever. I don't have any of those problems. So there's something about this argument that says it's the quality or the additives or the processing of what we eat in this country. I honestly do believe that. And on top of that, I think age does your body does start to change.
It's a combination of two things then, essentially. But yeah, anyway, we're going to wrap this one up for today. There'll be more in future discussion. But I'd just like to say a very, very big thank you to my mate, Ash. He'll be on again. So, guys, enjoy it. Peace.
Enjoy.